National Women's History Month this March 2023. Sharing her time with us today is Allyssa Esquire, host of her bi-weekly segment, Victory's Corner, is back this week. First time on our podcast, the founder of ARC Republic, Dr. Kaia Niambi Shivers, has shed light on the hidden story, which is the way Black farmers, listen to this, America, the way Black farmers are treated in the United States of America in 2023. Unbelievable. The ARC Republic story has stirred up outrage in America. Black Colorado ranchers face domestic terrorism by local whites, traveled around and across this nation and beyond. We mentioned her story initially January 19, 2023, and provided updates that she released on several occasions thereafter. Congratulations to my sister, Chef Misha Nay, and her new venture, Willows and Pine, coming soon. And I can't wait for some of those oxtails. Boy, let me tell you something, girl. I'll be at the door the night before. I'll be at the door the night before. Oh, a member of our team and friends of the show, Gamma Phi Delta Sorority Incorporated, 1943, had their Founders Day in Albany, California, just a few minutes outside of Oakland, California. They patronized a Black-owned restaurant called Lizzie's Cajun Cafe. Y'all better get there this Friday, starting at 5 p.m. for live jazz entertainment, taco bar, fish fry. Let me go now. Fish fry. Address is 1254 Solano Avenue in Albany, California. Once again, 1254 Solano Avenue in Albany, California. Website is LizziesCajunCafe.com. I want to welcome back this week my favorite, irrefutable expert that keeps me, and that's a big job, in a good headspace, and is our mental health consultant. I'll save that introduction, of course, for my co-host, Dr. Ashley, Doctor of Psychology, with us each week as she broadcasts from Southern California, helping us all with our mental health needs. So let's get started. Instagram at Victory for Oakland, and that's FOR for Oakland, at ARC Republic, at The Busy Housewife 2017, at Lizzie Cajun Cafe, at, once again, Lizzie Cajun Cafe. And I will be beating all of you there for that fried catfish. Hashtag Victory for Oakland, and that's FOR for Oakland. Hashtag ARC Republic. Hashtag The Busy Wife 2017. Hashtag Lizzie's Cajun Cafe. Hashtag GPDINC 1943. And that stands for Gamma Phi Delta Sorority Inc. Our sincerest thank you, as always, to Mr. Donnie Glover of Black USA for the honor of the Black Business Roundtable, being a part of your growing network dedicated to bringing the real, unfiltered news before the news. Hashtag blackusa.news, hashtag Donnie Glover. Today, March 16th, 2023, noted via the National Day calendar, today is National Panda Day. Hashtag National Panda Day. In the wild, there are approximately only 1,964, according to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, and 100 living in zoos around the world. Thank you, National Day Calendar, for that information. Some current events in the news today. This is similar to what's going on here in Oakland. Texas education takeover in Houston. Not only will this shift the learning of students, but it is how that shift will come to evolve. Now, let me be clear here. Houston, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Governor Greg Abbott, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. The district that they're trying to take over is over 60% Black and brown kids of color. You're not going into those white areas taking over. So we need to keep our eye on this story. We need to support the Houston district to preserve their right to educate their kids in their community and not have the governor down there running shotgun with his racist counterpart. And just remember, Ku Klux Klan don't always come in sheets. They don't have to be bald head, skinhead, or tattoos on their arms. They do come in suit and tie. Remember that. U.S. drone rear propeller hit by Russian jet, causing it to fall from the sky, but was safely scrubbed of all sensitive information remotely. U.S. and Russia are racing to recover the drone. This week's Black Business Roundtable thumbs up goes to newly elected. Oh, let me stand up because I supported this sister. Newly elected Sheng Thao for joining Mayors for Guaranteed Income Coalition. Once again, this week's Black Business Roundtable thumbs up goes to Mayor Sheng Thao for joining Mayors for Guaranteed Income Coalition, kicking down walls and opening up progress. Congratulations, Mayor Sheng Thao of Oakland, California. Hashtag Mayor for, and that's FORAGI, and that's a guaranteed income. Hashtag Mayor Sheng Thao. This week's Black Business Roundtable thumbs down goes to who made the Black Business Roundtable Naughty List 2023 this week. Well, they've been in it, on it, and will continue. We will follow up until we get Enzo, that dog who was dragged. The same damn people, Lodi California City Council, the Lodi Police Department, and the Lodi Animal Control for all not having the decency to condemn the acts of the 2 police officers and the animal control officer involved in Enzo being the beloved Husky death on the streets of Lodi in front of family, friends, and neighbors. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Lodi police, get on the ball and take care of business and fire those police officers and fire that animal control who drugged that dog down the street and then tased him to death. Ought to be shame, shame, shame. You know, we're going to stay on top of this story because I love animals, and this is a disgrace. They may be blue, but they still work for all of you, Lodi. They may be blue, but they still work for all of you, Lodi. That means these are the same officers that may come across your children in the future that might have a run-in with the law in a back alley of Lodi. Your pets that also accidentally find their way getting out and needing help getting home, or a family member having a mental health crisis. Would you trust their judgment, or will you have to wait and learn the future lesson and look back at what you could have done when Enzo, the dog, family dog, was the sacrificial lamb of 2023. There was a peaceful protest march demanding justice for Enzo on April 1st at 1 p.m. Meet at the Arch in downtown Lodi on West Pine Street and Sacramento Street. In addition, share it. And I want you to share these hashtags. Hashtag boycott Lodi. Hashtag Lodi California. Hashtag Lodi wine. Hashtag Lodi wines. Hashtag Lodi wine country. Hashtag Lodi winery. Hashtag Lodi wineries. Hashtag Lodi wine tours. Hashtag visit Lodi. Hashtag visit wine festival known as Lodi Grape Festival. We want to get these bad actors off the streets, and we want to get this animal control officer off the streets of Lodi, California. Don't receive the thumbs down in hashtag the town. Do better. Do better. You are welcome to come and talk with us about it and make it right. Make it right. You know and I'm always talking mental. Do you know the mental damage you have done to not only the kids who own the dog and the family, but to the neighbors and the community? Make it right. Hashtag BBRT Naughty List. Hashtag BBRT Naughty List 2023. Joining us first today is my sister, Allyssa Victory Esquire, discussing building Black political economic power, elected officials' accountability to the public, and government budgeting for justice. The next hour of power is with our new sister, Dr. Kaia Niambi Shivers, founder of Ark Republic. You may recall she broke the story of the Black ranchers being terrorized in Colorado, January of 2023. And that story blew up, and she released several more updates. And there is a lot more to Ark Republic. So let's find out what's it is on their horizon. So let's get started. And my co-host joining me shortly, my sister, my friend, my colleague, and I think she might have some special news. Oh, there she goes. You're looking lovely today.
Thank you, Doug. You look handsome as well. How are you?
Speaker.
Can you hear me?
It's my speaker.
Okay.
Girl, I'm trying not to tell the secret, so I'm gonna keep my mouth closed. But I'm so proud of you, a diamond, and you're not in the rough.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, let's get started with my co-host joining me shortly, and here she is, as we give you the scoop from Oakland, right here on the Black Business Roundtable. Breaking news. You like that? My show guests today include Therapeutic Thursday. Check in with my very, there I go again, girl. I'm already claiming you, and I've been working on it, so let me get back. Therapeutic Thursday. Check in with our very own Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology, tenured and immediate past department chair, assistant professor of psychology at University of the West. Welcome, Dr. Ashley. Allyssa Victory Esquire is a civil rights leader, educator, and licensed attorney serving across the Bay Area and state of California. Visit her website at Victory4, and that's FOR Oakland, WordPress.com. On Instagram at Victory4, and that's FOR Oakland. And hashtag Victory4, that's FOR Oakland. And last but definitely not least, we got a new all-star on the team, Dr. Kaia Niambi Shivers, founder, editor-in-chiefess, a professor. Well, wait a minute, another professor? You know what? That's why I look so good. I surround myself with brains and professors and doctors and lawyers. Hey, audience, I would not be looking so good if I didn't have so many great people around me. Keep up the great work, Dr. Ashley, Allyssa,
Thank you,
Victory.
Doug.
And once again, I'm going to announce her name again, Dr. Kaia Niambi Shivers, founder, editor, and chiefess, a professor at New York University who specializes in writing and media studies. Her website is arcrepublic.com, Instagram at arcrepublic, at Black Farmers Index, hashtag arcrepublic, hashtag Black Farmer. And now, for the national political highlight, the launch of Mission Democracy by Fred Wellman, Market Flowers, yes, Brother Flowers, right here, friend of the show, that appeared on the show last year from Georgia, and Oliva Troy are all co-founders. The main proposition, New Republic should run, no republic should run for Congress unopposed. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. How's that working out for him? Making headway in individual districts and moving the needles across the country. Marjorie Taylor Greene ran unopposed in her first election. So this is a unique concept working from the bottom up instead of the top down. Visit their website at missiondemocracy.org, Instagram at MISN Democracy, hashtag MISN Democracy. And now the news of the day from my favorite doctor. And before I give her the mic, audience, if you have a broken leg, you'd go see a medical doctor. If you had a cavity that was causing you extreme pain, have your face swole up, you'd go see a dentist. If you are having signs of suicide, depression, anxiety, if you have a splinter in your brain and can't figure it out, go see a doctor of psychology. On that note, Dr. Ashley, please take us away. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And again, greetings, audience. Welcome to another Thursday with BBRT. We'll start with news of the day, which is courtesy of the Equal Justice Initiative that who produces a daily calendar of historical events. And on this day, March 16th, 2021, a white man killed 8 people, including 6 Asian women, in an Atlanta shooting spree. And it's unbelievable to think that this, again, was 2 years ago and all of the things that were going on at this time during the pandemic. So, a 21-year-old white man carried out a shooting spree at 3 spas in Atlanta, killing 8 people. 6 of the 8 victims were Asian women. At around 5 p.m. on that evening, Aaron Robert Long opened fire inside the Young's Asian massage parlor in Ackworth, Atlanta, killing 4 people. He used a gun and ammunition he had purchased just hours earlier. Mr. Long then drove roughly 30 miles to 2 other locations, Gold Spa and Aromatherapy Spa, where he shot and killed 3 additional victims. Several hours later, law enforcement located and arrested Mr. Long about 150 miles outside of Atlanta. He told investigators that he struggled with, quote, sexual addiction, for which he had unsuccessfully sought treatment, and that he had targeted the 3 spas to eliminate the temptation they posed for him. The shooting was carried out amidst a rise of violence against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders following the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Stop AAPI Hate, a group that collects data on hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States, reported nearly 7,000 racially motivated incidents occurring between March 19th of 2020 and March 31st, 2021. Again, over 12% of which were categorized as physical assaults. Robert Peterson, whose mother, Yang Yu, was among those killed, and he said in an interview that he had just talked to his mother about her being targeted for being Asian with this influx of hatred. Mr. Peterson, whose father is black, added, "We both understood what it was like." Shortly after Mr. Long's arrest, the sheriff's deputy, acting as a spokesperson for the case, drew widespread criticism after commenting, quote, "Yesterday was a really bad day for Mr. Long, and this is what he did." Posts from the sheriff's deputy personal Facebook page in which he prompted t-shirts with anti-Asian messaging also emerged. He resigned shortly thereafter. And in July 2021, Mr. Long pleaded guilty to murder and four of the killings and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Such a sad story as we talk about hate crimes. So much to unpack there, Doug, but I just want to highlight the fact that Mr. Long was arrested without incident after committing murder. Isn't it amazing? There, wide variety of trainings, but how there can be apprehension again without incident or death.
Well, Dr. Ashley, we can move towards, I believe it was in Washington, D.C., where the boy went to the church, killed all the people, and the sheriff and police took him to Burger King,
Oh yeah, South Carolina, Charleston.
South Carolina.
Oh yeah, I think it was South Carolina. I think so. Hmm.
There
Right.
appears to be a continuous pattern.
Mm.
If you white, it's all right. If you black, we're going to stab you in the back. On that note, that is why your therapy is needed in our community, because young people now are not the young people we were. Excuse me, I was. See, you're still a baby, but I was back in the '70s and so forth. One of the things that audience, if your child is asking questions
Mhm.
and concerned about, and I listen to, and I'll be brief because I know it's your segment coming up, but
Oh,
I
go ahead.
listen to the kids talk about what's going on in Houston, Texas today on Fox News. And let me tell you something. They're being psychologically damaged because several of them stated if we were a white charter school, they wouldn't be taking us over. And there are many charter schools down there. If we were a white district, they wouldn't be taking us over. So kids now are grasping this concept. Once again, if you white, it's all right. If
Mm,
you black, I might get stabbed in the back.
mm.
On that note, our weekly check-in with our very own audience, our very own Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology. Dr. Ashley, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And again, welcome to Therapeutic Thursdays, audience. For those who are joining us live and seeing, you see I have on my Howard University sweatshirt, my alma mater. It does not take much for me to rep my beloved Howard and to be a proud Bison, which I've mentioned several times on the show. And we're going to have our guest, Dr. Shivers, on, who's also a two-time HBCU graduate as well. So we will bask in that. One of the reasons why I'm wearing Howard University's sweatshirt today is the start of March Madness. Now, you know my stress ball is a football. You know I work with student athletes. You know I have Kobe Bryant behind me, and I love sports. But I'm not going to focus on the tournament. That's not why I'm bringing it up. But what is the NCAA March Madness tournament? It's a tournament of 64 collegiate teams. There's a men's tournament and a women's tournament. who are competing again for the number one prize to be known as the sole champion in their respective sport, which at this time is basketball, ladies and men's basketball. Again, why am I bringing up Howard? Howard is a member of the Mid Atlantic Eastern Conference, the MEAC, and the Mid Eastern Atlantic Conference. And Howard University is known for wonderful things, but going to the tournament, they're not known for. But for the first time since 1992, Howard University won the MEAC Conference Championship, which means that they earned a berth into the 64 team competition. Today, they competed against, again, Kansas University. And at the first half, they were only down by a little bit, but Kansas, they put up a great fight and Kansas won. Why am I bringing this up? Well, for number one, again, Howard University cheered when they earned the berth to this tournament. Why? Because they're not known for basketball, and it was a shock to the world, except to the men and the coaches, and I'm sure as Howard Bison, that they were able to rise to the occasion again. So they went for this dream that seemed like a long shot. And I watched every dribble today, and they competed hard. They weren't. They didn't have stage fright. They didn't act like they didn't deserve. They didn't act like they didn't deserve to be there. And again, they left it all out on the court. While they lost today, they didn't fail. They now have experience, and so that they can make tweaks, take inventory of the things that went well, the things that they can do better, and to come back stronger next year. Well, I thought about it. When we're going for our dreams, when we have a dream, do we believe it first and foremost, right? Is there something in your life? When's the last time you've taken inventory? Is there something in your life, a dream that you had that maybe was deferred, right? Maybe it's been delayed, but that doesn't mean it has to be denied. Is it time to pause? Many of us pivoted during the pandemic and had to prioritize survival, well being, doing whatever we needed to do to survive for ourselves and our families, maybe even caretaking. But now's a great time, again, as spring is coming to in its blooming season, to pick back up those dreams and to think about what you need to carry them out. Are you still burning with that passion to open that business? Again, to change fields, to find a job that allows you to prioritize different needs of the family, working from home or childcare. I wanted to highlight some things that can be very important when you're considering making a significant shift in your life. One is protecting your dream by being strategic in who you reach out to. Is there a mentor by chance, that someone in the field that you can reach out to? Maybe this involves cold calling or emailing that can be anxiety provoking. But someone that you know has done this well that can maybe spare some time, invite them for coffee. Um, Ignore the critics. There are many people that are just like, basketball, Howard. Again, they hadn't been to the tournament in 31 years. Most people criticizing what you're dreaming of doing don't A, have the courage to go for what you're aspiring for, or maybe are projecting that they don't have the courage to go for what they wanted out of life. And that's a shame. But they're going to talk anyway. So go for it, right? Just make sure you're not the loudest critic that you know. It's one thing to take inventory of strengths, weaknesses, skills that you may need to develop. Is this a class? Is this a seminar? Is this a book you need to read? But recognizing what your self talk is going to be so important, because again, it's important for you to be the main person cheering you on during this process. So again, I just want to invite all of us to revitalize some of those dreams that we have hidden and buried. Now is a great time. I'm sure you've planted seeds to revisit that. And then later in the show, I'll be sharing a little bit more about my own transparency, about my own process of following up on a dream. But again, therapy, while we talk about it being a great place to go when someone is experiencing psychological distress, it also is a great place to go to talk about dreams and to brainstorm strategies and to kind of mold decisions. Should I do this? Should I do that? I'm thinking about taking job A or job B. So I also want to highlight that therapy can be a safe place without bias, where you just have a sounding board to kind of develop your plan. So as always, if you're interested in therapy, um, there's therapy for blackgirls.com, there's therapy for blackmen.org. You can also go to Psychology Today and change your settings to your preferences for your provider. And as always, if you find yourself having an emergency, yourself or someone you love, please dial 988 or go to the nearest emergency room. I'm going to say it affectionately, how we say sometimes, young folks, life be lifing sometimes. But if you can just survive the moment to the next day, it's spring and blooming season can come again. Doug?
And I want to piggyback before Allyssa come on. Denzel Washington, one of the most notarized, famous black and actors in not just America, but in the world. Facts. No matter how long it took you to finish a degree, it's a degree. If
Mm-hmm.
it took you 10 failed relationships to find love, you found it. A
Mm-hmm.
house bought at the age of 65 is still an accomplishment. At the end of the day, this great man said this: don't let people bully you with their timeline of success.
Mm-hmm.
Audience, read that back again and again, because you get some people saying, oh, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Ask them, what are they doing? To that end, to that end, audience, welcome back. Our first hour segment of Victory's Corner with Allyssa Victory Esquire, one of our social justice women warriors on our panel. Dr. Ashley, please read this magnificent person's bio. And before she gets on, because there she go. The reason why I look good, audience, look who I surround. I surround myself with eagles, so I steady fly like I don't surround myself with chickens, but with eagles. On that note, take us away, Dr. Ashley.
Thank you. Allyssa Victory Esquire is a civil rights leader, educator, and licensed attorney serving across the Bay Area and state of California. She holds a BA with honors in ethnic studies and minor in Black studies, as well as a JD concentrated in government law. Allyssa currently practices in policing and labor law and is an elected ADEM delegate to the California Democratic Party for Assembly District 18. Again, we're still, Allyssa, we're not going to get tired of announcing your victory, especially for you and the rest of your slate members. And as always, welcome back to BBRT.
Thank you. I never get tired of it either, because it's all history making and just being reminded of we've taken that first step. Let's continue to make more. But happy Thursday. Happy to be here with you all for Victory's Corner, and happy daylight savings time. Feeling that hour loss. Talk about mental health and wellness. I was like, oh, fighting for it. But it'll give us more daylight, more time to actually be outside in the evenings. So adjusting.
Yeah, ditto.
And audience, I'd like to say, after the show last week, I met with Sean Dugard, who is and you could correct his title if I say it incorrectly, is a Democratic leader in the Democratic Party. We got a group of Black people together. It's all over my Facebook and LinkedIn. This is what I talk about when I talk about Black political power. And Allyssa, before you dive into the first question, can you share with our audience and audience, once again, Allyssa led the show when it comes to politics. I'm with my pencil and paper in the background, like I'm in So talk about that briefly, Lisa. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for attending. Yes, our DNC rep, our Democratic National Convention, which is basically our state rep that we send to the National Democratic Party to represent our state. There's not too many. Sean Dugar is the only Black man who holds that position right now. And as part of him supporting and welcoming other Black Democrats, he hosted kind of a just meet and greet for Black delegates and Democrats in the Alameda County Democratic Party or in the Alameda County region. And so my slate, people's slate, was elected with actually majority Black identified members, all 12 of us back in February. And so many of us attended. Doug attended. He is an alternate for the County Democratic Party. We had leaders, from San Leandro, from unincorporated county, from Berkeley, definitely from Oakland in the house. And it was a time for us to get to actually ground ourselves and just knowing each other, right? There's no agenda. This wasn't like a super political meeting. It was just a space for us to meet each other, for us to welcome people who are new, and to talk a bit about what it means for us to start gaining more and more Black leaders that are being elected inside of the Democratic Party, and kind of what is our mandate to serve inside the party, but also to serve our community in Alameda County. So it was a great event, great discussion, and that's, just the beginning. Our official terms start in May as elected delegates, and our convention is in May in Los Angeles for the state party. So there's more work that's going to come, and a lot more that will come out of that May convention.
And on top of that, they had food from a barbecue place that I was watching those ribs disappear like it was a magical thing.
I think there was a whole fight over who was going to take home the leftovers. Shout out to Matt Horn. He is a Black man who owns Matt Horn Barbecue in Oakland, who is also opened and planning to open several other different restaurants in our beautiful city. So follow him, support him, and you will not be disappointed if you eat at any of his restaurants.
Audience, let me tell you something. I ate there, and I had a doggy bag. It was a doggy bag I had to hold with two hands to get out the door. On that note, welcome back, Allyssa Victory and Victory's Corner. How do we go about building Black political and economic power? Thank you.
For one segment, a few thoughts, but I kind of touch on, this theme around our unifying and what we're actually building to and trying to reach on all of our segments. But Black economic power and political power, a lot of them go hand in hand. We're in a capitalist society, so our economic issues are very much intertwined with our racial justice issues. But we're living kind of under the status quo that is designed for Black folks to be at the bottom of all indicators of quality of life, for us to be excluded from opportunity, have disparate opportunity, for us to be disparately caged and in poverty and in negative spaces in our society, in our city, in our state. And so if we know that that is kind of the status and position of Black community, of what our government and our leaders are doing or allowing to happen under their control, there is a call for us to then be leading and organizing and unifying around what does a Black economic agenda look like and what does a Black political agenda look like. And those should actually be the same, right? That when Black folks have more representation, there should also then be more of that equity and repairing the harm and making sure that it's not continuing as we go forward. Franz Fanon is one of my favorite quotes from The Wretched of the Earth. He's an author. And he says, the mission for every generation is, for every generation must find its mission and will either fulfill it or they will betray it. And I think our mission continues to be the same. It's working for civil rights, working for equal rights, working for real basic justice and freedom in this country. And so it requires us to, one, know that history, to know how we continue to cycle in progress, and then we're being rolled back. Progress, and we're being rolled back, right? We're still talking about reparations right now. We're talking about bringing back the Freedmen's Bureau. right? Freedmen's Bureau was around in the 1800s, right? Designed to help folks with Reconstruction. And so if we don't know that history, then we're going to be repeating it. And so part of our Black political power is politicizing ourselves. We're not learning Black history. We're not learning political history. We're not learning about organizing and about how to build movements inside of our schools, right? Even Black children are under attack in our public schools. So we have to be organizing ourselves outside of that, educating ourselves, right? Being willing to read, right? To pick up books, to go and study, to listen to oral history, to go to museums that are made for us in Black history, to really understand how we've already tried to make progress and how that has failed or how it's been obstructed, and how we can continue to rebuild back some of those things like reparations, Freedmen's Bureau. These are not new ideas, but can we reform them and make them real for the moment that we're in? And so reparations, you can't talk about Black economic power without talking about reparations. So again, the status quo has been exclusion, harm, racism, and inequity, right? And that still is the status quo, even in Oakland. And so if we are actually going to talk about economic justice or any type of equal playing field, there has to be repair for that past harm. And that's what reparations discussion, as I continue to bring up, it is moving forward. The state has an official task force. Their next public hearing is March 29th and 30th in the city of Sacramento. You can visit the Attorney General's website to see how to participate, whether remote or in person. Also, the city and county of San Francisco is moving forward with proposals of reparations to their residents that include $5 million cash payments, that include housing for no cost, that includes debt relief and freedom. So it's not just cash, but again, a whole package of repair. Even Oakland, I want to be clear, we don't have a reparations process, but we've had visionings with community around what a reparative plan would look like, what real investments look like. We've had studies that again confirm the harm, confirm that our city participated in things like redlining and urban renewal that disproportionately harmed Black and poor communities. And we've had Councilmember Carol Fife, I want to shout her out, that she's been leading on helping convene the community to put together things like the Oakland Black New Deal in 2020. She's then worked as a council member to have town halls and actual symposia around different topic areas of the Black New Deal, and to try to legislate by actually getting a report that documents the housing disparities. And that was just in housing. So it goes very deep. Part of us being politicized as Black folks is activating our own knowledge of self, knowledge of our history, and understanding the present moment that we are in. We can't have any progress really on Black economics, I think, until we have some reparations and we stop the harm that's continuing to happen. So I have a lot of thoughts around this, and this is what I do, workshops on and try to activate our young people around. And I really want us to be starting to move towards a Black unity conversation and a Black agenda, especially for the city of Oakland.
Allyssa, every time you come on this show, I have to go do more homework because you have more information than an encyclopedia. Google. On that note, Dr. Ashley, please fire off the next question. Thank you.
I will. And Allyssa, I have to tell you, when the news came out, news reports about the recommendations for Black residents in San Francisco, I thought of you and want to fire off so many questions, but I know we have you for a limited time. But next, Victory's Corner, we got to dive into that because, boy, there's so much discourse happening and opinions about that. But can you share with us, how do we obtain elected official accountability to the public that they can trust?
Whew. That's a big question. I'm seeing a real lack of leadership that includes accountable leadership in our city. I believe accountability starts with showing up, right? Picking up the phone, attending a community forum or meeting, being present, right? Physically going and seeing the conditions that your residents, your workers are living in, are traveling in, are dealing with every single day, so that you're not just being talked to and talked at, but you have some deeper understanding that there is a real relationship with your electeds and the people that you are serving. Accountability also looks like implementing things that people were elected to do, right? Candidates put out platforms. They'll make promises and have plans of how they're going to resolve XYZ issue. If they say those things on their campaign, have them on their mailers and as part of their core platform, people are voting not just for that candidate, but for that platform, right? For those actions. People weren't necessarily voting for me because they knew me as Allyssa Victory. They're voting for the Victory for Oakland platform of providing high quality services, of centering racial justice and equity, right? They were voting to see those things and those actions taken. And so accountability also looks like candidates who put that out during their campaigns to be accountable to themselves, to their own campaign teams, to what they wrote and put out to the public. Accountability also looks like budgeting, which I will talk about a little bit next. But budgets are statements of values, especially from government sides, that you can't just talk about things if you're not willing to actualize them. And usually that takes resources or staff, and those require money and budgeting. And so accountability kind of includes all the above, but I think the most basic, right, is showing up, having conversations, knowing who is in your community and what their concerns are, how they fit into what you ran on or what your job is as an elected official. I think even things like being more transparent, opening up with accessibility in terms of language, people who might be hearing and visually impaired. We have so much like online. How do we ensure that every person in our city can participate, can find information when they need to? It's also a big issue in Oakland right now because we're under a declared local emergency because we've been under a cyber attack where several of our confidential information files from years are being hacked, are being leaked. Our city has not been able to access certain parts of its own information systems and databases. And so it's causing real access issues even for the city to do its job. And so, of course, it's going to cause problems for the public to know what's happening, to get the information, to follow along. And so accountability is really hitting on all those points about transparency, showing up, being present, but actually delivering, right? Not just lip service, right? We want to see people moving things forward.
Once again, you said a mouthful. So
is always talking about accountability of our elected. So again, it's ongoing, and it doesn't matter if your best friend was elected, right? It doesn't matter if I was elected. I am not above accountability, and nobody is, right? Even if they're doing great work that you absolutely agree with, accountability still, right, is coming and being transparent, providing opportunities for input, and so people just know that you are doing it. But go ahead, Doug.
Well, audience, as you can see, if we keep supporting people like Allyssa Victory, the 11 young people, because I think I was the oldest person at the I had to shave and get some of that black.
You got the young energy though.
Well, let me just tell you, Allyssa, I will support you and all Black people who are trying to bring all Black people to the forefront and stop having us at the bottom of everything in this world: housing, healthcare, economics, politics, and on and on and on. To that end, what exactly does government budgeting for justice mean? Thank you.
Whew. Again, government kind of operates, right? Most things are funded through its own budget or have to get grants or leverage other partnerships with other entities or even private partnerships. But budget, starts as a statement of values. We have a budget process every year in the city of Oakland. Our total budget is around $4 billion. Yes, I said B as in balling. $4 billion annually. Now, to be clear, not all of that is just, we can designate it to go anywhere. Some of these are restricted, have to be used for very specific purposes, but that still gives you a picture of how much money is coming into the city, is going out into programs or services to our residents and our workers. Okay, if that's how much money we're dealing with every year, we should be able to house people. We should be able to feed people, especially our seniors and our youth. Right, we should have roads that we can drive on, that our buses can drive on to take people to work. So again, budgets reflect the values and the needs of the city. And when you don't have moral leadership that is willing to budget justly, willing to budget in a way that will produce justice and help rectify the areas that need some work, then you're going to have the same status quo. You're going to have housing continue to be underfunded. You're going to have our transportation continue to struggle because we're not investing in real infrastructure and street safety and repair. You're going to have other areas continue to be overfunded without really producing the services that are immediately needed. Again, we're under many local emergencies, right? Due to local homelessness, due to our cyber attack and our need for IT security. So those things that should indicate what our city is most in need of, where our residents are suffering the most. And we'd like to see a budget that is reflecting that, that is listening to what people are saying. There's going to be public town halls and listening sessions with our mayor, with your council members, with community organizations that organize around the budget. Those are spaces where they should be taking in feedback on their draft budgeting, on their different proposals, and making sure that it reflects, again, the city, not just one district, not just one person, not even just Black people, right? But I'm clear that if you solve a lot of Black people's issues in Oakland, you'll solve Oakland's issues, right? Around housing, around equity and business and economic justice. But there's also express campaigns that we're going to see run that are starting already. We have groups that are organizing for a moral budget. A lot of them are faith leaders. They're leaders that work on workers' rights and economic justice. EBASE, the East Bay Alliance for Sustainable Economies, has recently rolled out their moral budget that has 9 components that are very specific and directed at our mayor. We also have a traffic violence coalition that has acknowledged that we have really deadly corridors, especially in our Black and brown communities, as well as in Chinatown, which is one of the highest incident corridors. It's right by the freeway and people coming out of Alameda through Oakland. And we want more safety on our streets, not just for drivers, but again, for buses, for people who are using non-car travel. We got elders who ride their wheelchairs in the street, right? Can it be safe for them to do that? Right? Is the sidewalk even ADA accessible if they're not allowed to be in the streets? There's a lot of pedestrians that are killed crossing the streets. Sadly, a lot of these happen in our elder communities, but also around our schools, where parents and guardians are picking up their children. Right? We know there's going to be pickups and drop-offs every single day. And so there's a coalition that is asking our mayor to invest $20 million more into our Department of Transportation to make sure that we have the staffing and the actual resources to roll out all of our traffic safety and street safety plans, even ones that the mayor herself has announced. Mayor, I want to be clear, Mayor Thao ran on a very explicit promise around the city's budget. One of those included doubling the budget for the Department of Violence Prevention, doubling it. She was very clear in almost every forum around violence prevention solutions was that she would double that department. So again, part of accountability, part of a moral and just budget is holding our electeds accountable to what they've already promised, what they've already said, and knowing that Department of Violence Prevention is one of our newest departments in the whole city. And it has one of the highest vacancy rates, meaning they have budgeted staff, but they haven't been filling them. So we need to fill those positions and also add more and more resources. Again, all of our departments serve our city, serve our residents, serve our workers, and employ workers. And we need to make sure that our budget is set up so that our city is then going to function the way that we need it to.
Well, from my understanding, we're at a $350 million deficit coming up in the city of Oakland. We have hundreds of jobs that have not been filled. But, you know, I'm going to say she's still kind of honeymooning, but having you on the show is going to help me understand what is and is not happening. So, Allyssa Victory.
Yes. We've got some fights ahead, right? We are talking about budget deficit, which means we're going to be looking at austerity measures of we're cutting services, we're freezing, we're rolling back. I don't know what our city is going to do if we have even less services, if we have even less staff. if we have less investment, because some people aren't seeing any, aren't feeling like there's any. And so, it is kind of status quo response, but I think we still have to have leaders that are willing to do creative things. They're still willing to prioritize the needs of our community and not budget or balance our budget on the backs of our workers, on the backs of community that is waiting for services and resources for years, for generations, right? There's unhoused people who've been waiting 10 plus years to find shelter, to get off a waiting list for affordable housing, right? We have to deliver on those promises. And I do understand that our mayor is new, but she was on council before and then a council staffer before that. So she is informed of every budget cycle, what has happened, what happens when there's deficits, and we don't want to see the same type of cuts, the same workers being harmed as we've seen in the last administration. Again, we want to see a new priority and one that's more moral, one that is about justice. So our mayor is going to have a challenge, but it's a challenge that many mayors have faced before, and we'd still like to see her take a different approach. And again, do it with community, be in conversation, be transparent, and be accountable to even what she has promised.
You know, to be a what do you call it, inspector general, girl. You I'm like, I'm glad I'm glad I'm not in charge of anything.
But I don't know if I want that to be my official job.
Well, audience, let's be clear here. As you know, I am Pamela Price's alternate delegate. Pamela Price had her platform back in 2017. She committed to that same platform just recently when she just won. And I'm sure Allyssa Victory can agree with me. She is on point, on target, on mark. And once again, that's why I look so great, because I hang out with greatness. Dr. Ashley, please.
We're getting ready. Yeah, go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
No, I think we're almost running out of time for Allyssa. We, Allyssa, it is an honor and a pleasure. Audience, I've been knowing this young lady for 6 years. Met her back in 2017. She has been a committed. Excuse me.
I said it's gone by fast.
And you have been a committed person for the cause, the fight and causes for social justice shared equally. And I commend you for that. And if you are a mirror of what's going to be happening in our future, I don't mind growing old, because some of the young people got me scared out here, girl. I'm not lying. But when I hear young people like you talk and how you get involved and organize, I am proud to know you and be your friend, colleague, and now co-host on the Victory's Corner.
Well, I'm honored again to even have the support of the Business Roundtable, to be able to share some information and thoughts with you all, to have Dr. Ashley's amazing wisdom and expertise, and to have y'all's support for my campaign, but also going forward. Again, we have a lot of work to do in Oakland and beyond. Oakland, has so much strong Black history, but we have so much suffering. There's so much struggle still that we're going through. But the most supreme method of struggle is organizing. Okay, so we are getting organized. We're activating people to be able to lead. Many of them are young, just like me, and even younger, right? We're getting our high school, our middle school babies ready. Oakland is that special place. And so I do have so much hope in us, in my city. That's why I'm never going to stop. And so there will be more calls, more explicit calls for Black unity, to have conversations among ourselves, right? We can't ask electeds to come and speak with us if we haven't got ourselves together first, if we haven't done our political education, if we don't have our Black agenda right. So there will be calls. Please respond to those calls.
So excited again, Allyssa, to always have
Dr.
you.
Ashley,
Yes, no, definitely. Audience, stay tuned with what Alyssa's doing. Again, her Instagram handle is at Victory for Oakland, as well as her website, victoryforoakland.wordpress.com. Alyssa, we're so appreciative, again, echoing Doug, of you sharing your insights. Accountability is definitely needed. And we look forward to having you back in 2 weeks.
Thank you all. Have a great evening. And again, thank you for having me. See you in 2 weeks.
Allyssa, when I go to those, because I'm going to be in LA for the delegates, I'm going to be down there. I'm gonna be following you. Go any question they ask hard to me, get them, Allyssa.
No, we're gonna be trained up and ready. But thank you. I will see you soon. Have a great evening, y'all. Peace.
Thank you. On that note, Ashley, can you take us to a commercial break? And we want to immediately show our audience how we hook up East Coast, West Coast, and we throw them things. When we come with, well, not with smoke, but with thunder and lightning. Take us away, Dr. Ashley.
Absolutely, Doug. Thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of BlackUSA.News, just for this wonderful platform. Audience, be sure to tune in to our sister programming. On Mondays, there's the Donnie Glover Show, as well as Chap and Friends. On Tuesdays, there's Party Marty Let's Talk. On Fridays, there's Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard. He knows all about blockchain and cryptocurrency. And boy, did I want to pick his brain about what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. I digress. On Saturdays, there's the Blackout Live with New York with Tajmir. And on Sundays, there's 60 Minutes in Black USA with Michael Haney, as well as the Beverly Francis Show. To join our BBRT advertising family or to be a possible guest on the show, you can reach us via our email address, bbbrt2021@hotmail.com. In your email, please include your company's details, its website, and contact information for vetting consideration. Doug?
On that note, as you know, May will be going into our third. We are in our second year now. We're going to our third year. And I constantly don't report, nor do we report. Our producer goes behind the scenes and gets those stories that need to be heard. Let me be clear before I introduce our next guest. White America, don't tell it, because we will. On that note, we want to welcome, for the first time on the show, coming from the East Coast, Doctor. And once again, that's why I look good, audience. It's not because I look good. I just put people all around me who look, and beautiful Nubian queens to make me look great.
Oh my gosh. Let me scoot over a little bit.
Welcome for the time on the show, Dr. Kaia Niambi Shivers of Arc Republic. We are so proud of the work you and all the contributors of Arc Republic put forth. Dr. Ashley, please read this dynamic woman bio. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Dr. Kaia, affectionately for short, Kaia Niambi Shivers, is the founder and editor-in-chief this, a professor at New York University who specializes in writing and media studies. By day, she researches how people of African diaspora use media to imagine, construct, and perform identity. And at night, she turns into the first architect crafting stories with the Arc Republic Collective. From news to features, she covers a wide range of stories for over 20 years. Dr. Shivers has worked in media. And as I said earlier, Dr. Shivers, I also was happy to do my research to find out you're a two-time HBCU graduate. And so, again, I really enjoyed learning about your research and all the ways you represent people of the African diaspora and beyond. So we're so happy to have you here at the Black Business Roundtable.
Thank you. It wasn't intentional, but I am wearing kind of one of my alma mater's colors. I went to Florida A&M University, North Atlanta. It was something that was, embedded in us by our parents that, you have to have a sound grasp of who you are before you go out into corporate America or America. And with all of the issues that HBCUs have, because we know there are a plethora of them, it was the best decision I made. As a matter of fact, one of my good friends from FAMU won the Pulitzer Prize last year. I'm going to see if maybe he can come on. But these are the people that you meet at these institutions, right? So thank you for having me. Thank you. I was telling your producer that I listen to you every Thursday on my commute home. Wow. It is so refreshing. Wow. You know, I you know, media, as much as there is a lot of media, a lot of it is malnourished media. That's what I would call it. Very deficient. So this feeds me. This nourishes me.
And we are and honored on the show today, Dr. Shivers, Dr. Ashley, audience. I love this. Dr. Shivers. We just had Allyssa Esquire. Wow, I feel like a knight. Anyway, Dr. Shivers, Dr. Ashley, and I were introduced to Ark Republic's article, Get Out. Black Colorado ranchers face domestic terrorism in America. And we want to go across the country. We want to go across the globe and fight terrorism. We can't even fight it in our own backyard. Domestic terrorism by local white people. Oh, white people do terrorism? Oh, I'm appalled. Who they say are trying to steal their land. Dated January 17, 2023 by our producer. And I was floored. And we shared with our audience what has happened since the release of not only that initial article, but all 5 articles detailing the story that has reached beyond the United States. And once again, audience, America proclaims to fight terrorism unless it's white people terrorizing. Okay, on that note, I'm gonna take myself off because I'm bound to say something. That was a question.
Oh, that was a question. Okay, well, yeah, I can respond. I didn't know. Well, I think one of the hi Donnie Glover. Thank you so much for staying tuned and listening. I hope we could have future conversations. One of the questions I got, Dr. Ashley, is that, well, why are you calling this domestic terrorism? That's like the first question. And the reason being is I live on the East Coast, but admittedly I'm Cali all day. I'm from Los Angeles. So, and I am the tail end of the Great Migration. My parents moved to LA following the migratory route that my mother's family carved out because they're from Louisiana.
Okay.
So my father is from Mississippi, and growing up, there were stories in my family line about losing land to aggressive, violent white people. And as a matter of fact, my great-grandfather, Furnace Jones, was acquitted, was the first Black man in the state of Louisiana to be acquitted for killing a white man. And it was over, the white man was trying to steal his land. So because he was found not guilty, he was hidden for 3 months, and then they in the middle of the night snuck him out, and he then lived in Houston. But what happened is that the local whites and the local white racists did not forget what happened, and so they intimidated, bullied. Those words are not sufficient. They terrorized the family that my great-grandfather left behind, who was my grandmother, her sisters, because a lot of the men, they went off to war. And so he heard that the family wasn't doing so well. So he went to visit, and within less than a week, his body parts were found on the train tracks of St. Martinville, Louisiana. So that's my mother's side. On my father's side, my father's side were prominent pastors, and but they also were very vocal about how Black people were treated in the state of, at the time, it was Alabama. and they were run off of their land and they relocated to Mississippi. So I had this in my family, and you don't call these acts of atrocity, bullying, intimidation. This is terroristic acts, because also these acts are backed by all forms of law enforcement and local government, right? So terrorism indicates that it's a system of violence that is enacted, and without any impunity. So this is what Black people experience throughout history. But in the South, this domestic terrorism that we talk about is targeting farm folk usually, because that's mostly where we were before we moved out to the cities in the Great Migration. So I used the term domestic terrorism very intentionally because we still have this problem of white violence and vitriol being protected by systems of power. And so I use that, and it does happen. This terrorism does happen, and it's been happening on U.S. soil. So that's why I use it.
Dr. Ashley, I was so excited having her on the show. I jumped right over your question.
It's okay. It's okay. We're flowing. First, Dr. Shivers, I am struck by your story. And as a therapist, I always really enjoy hearing people's stories in their own words. So your use of domestic terrorism was intentional and appropriate. And I'm struck by the decisions that Black people have had to make in response to trauma and migrating as a response in survival, and wanting to keep those relationships, wanting to protect family, and just what you talked about with your great grandfather and that story. And so I was just acknowledging how often our coping, while it's resourceful, is life or death, and then often involves loss. And then I'm thinking of the connection between your family story and you using your gift of art, of writing, and liberating and representing the Black farmers in Colorado. And how often one of the ways Black people have lived is by telling our stories in our own way. So I just am struck by that.
Can I just respond very quickly? Several things, two things mainly I'm going to talk about that came up very briefly is that when I started working with farmers, because that's the other thing that I do, the stories that I told you were just family stories that you just tucked away. You heard bits and pieces. I didn't hear the full story of my grandfather until the last 6 months of my grandmother's life, who passed at the age of 96 in 2016. And she had that story on repeat. She told 2 stories until she couldn't speak English anymore because her first language was Creole, Louisiana Creole. And so I began to think, what if we still held the land on both sides of the family? I wouldn't be struggling with this debt. My life would be radically different. And I never, you are conditioned as a Black person, especially, this immigration conversation that a lot of immigrants have. We as migrants, Black migrants, experience the exact same thing, having to move from what you call home, mostly not because of you want to, but you're forced to do it. And the traumas that go into that, and the stories that are told, and a lot of the stories that are not told. And I recognize that my family had been living in generations of trauma, listening to my grandmother tell that story and how she was just deeply and profoundly wounded. And as a Black woman, and her sisters as Black women, how they grew up during a time where, women were very vulnerable. And if you didn't have a man in the proximity to protect you, you were, a sheep, and you were a sheep in the forest, right? So and so those are some of the things that my grandmother said, and I wanted to say that. And so that struck me too. And just as Black people, and I want to say this, and then we lost, but white people gained. off of our trauma, right? So this is a part of the terrorism that we're talking about. And yes.
Now, I'd like to say this, piggyback off of a story. My dad's family moved out here from Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, because when my grandmother was having her 9th child, she was bleeding heavily, and it was a lot of complications. And because at that time, back in the 1950s, they did not allow Black people in hospitals, she lost her child, my uncle. So America, especially young America, this is real. We're talking less than 100 years ago. But I had to share that because the story you told about, they had to hide out your uncle. I am so sure that Black people in every part of this country, in their history, has something like what you said, like what you were talking about, Dr. Ashley, when your grandparents owned the property in Lakeshore. I remember, like I said, I'm with Eagles. I got to keep on point. I got my little cheat sheet down there like that. Is it on you, Dr. Ashley? I'm sorry. I just had to put that out there. We really don't, as a people, understand the type of white terrorism that goes on in this country every day. And I love talking with you, Doctor, because you ladies are throwing them things just like me. I just throw them a little differently.
As you, Dr. Shivers, you're not new to the show, so Doug cuts up. So Doug, I'm going to just segue just to make sure you got cut. Where's your stick? Where's your stick?
But I'm here for it. I'm here, but I'm here for it. I'm 1,000,000% here for it because I mean. Mr. Doug, you were talking about yours, but I grew up with this very similar story. My father, he cannot talk about his mother without breaking out to tears. And my father is like, he's 6 feet. He used to be a football player, this, epitome of masculinity. But he can never get through a story with his mother because his mother had a massive stroke and she was not afforded health care in the local hospital. So she ended up dying in his arms in the front of the hospital. They just gave her something for the pain. And he was 17 at the time. He was a senior in high school. And so that he is forever in a trauma. And it was nothing like therapy then, you know what I'm saying? And so so I heard that story over and over and over again. And so this is, I think, one of the reasons why I'm so infused with when I can push for justice using my skill and my craft, I will do it. I couldn't sleep at night when this story came to me. I just couldn't sleep at night.
Wow. I mean, ladies, you're going to have me cutting the screen off because you got my eyes watered up. And I'll just say this brief. I remember in the 70s going down to Arkansas, Arkadelphia, and my grandfather said, boy, you be in this house for them lights come on. We was way back there where there are no lights. He talking about the moonlight. And then when I went down there a little later on, he says, do not go back in this area after dark. Do not go in this area after dark. So anyway, Dr. Ashley, is it on you? Because this has got me fired. It's got me fired up, baby.
I know.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Okay. Dr. Shivers, on your website, one of the things that really stood out to us was the Declaration of Independence. The first line states, "We are the people and the people deserve better." Again, we find this powerful statement. We want to hear a little bit. However, the Declaration continues to bloom like a flower in truth. Can you share a little bit about how this grew into a full declaration?
Wow. That's an excellent question. That is an excellent question. So I wrote the Declaration of Independence from just multiple angles. Arc Republic is a full-scale boutique media firm. I used to be a journalist. I got my writing chops as being a member of the Black press in LA at the Los Angeles Sentinel. which is a Black. It still is in existence. So I know what it's like to be in the community and write stories of the community and through the voice of the people. I know what it's like to be committed. And at the time that I always wanted to do something with my own media, but at the time I saw a very toxic news media cycle that was going on. So this is 2016 when I'm starting to think about like what type of media company that I want. And 2016, this is the end of Obama, and then here you have the Hillary Clinton and Trump presidential battle, and it became so toxic, and it became like a circus, in my opinion, that a lot of the news that we needed as Black people, as vulnerable people, poor folk, everybody, basically, not just Black people, we were not being given that information so we could navigate the waters as best as we could. And so I thought that there needed to be some type of platform or avenue, or I like to call it the mothership. I'm from LA, so I'm like, fuck all that, right? I need okay. That's right. we needed a ship and a salvation to take us somewhere. And so the idea of Ark Republic came up, but it was just this idea of we needed to regrow our nation of people, a collective of people that were willing to talk it out and talk through very difficult decisions. And so one day I was just looking at the news and I said, we deserve better than what we're given. And in my opinion, when you don't have, and I was talking about this, like how y'all feed me with what the conversations you have, when you are not fed, you don't know what you need. And I think this is where we are a lot of ways in news, because a lot of people don't know what media is. Nonetheless, those of us who know better know that the people deserve holistic stories, rich stories that are told from various angles. You can be, so people are like talking about like this whole idea of bias. We all biased. We all are subjective. It is what it is. As a Black woman, I will always have a certain perspective, but I still can be fair. I can still tell a fair story. And so this declaration is saying that we can collectivize beyond actually racial, ethnic ties, right? Because there's good folk everywhere, like there's not good folk. And we can push through, but we must demand what that looks like. So Ark Republic is a declaration of our independence from what mainstream tells us what we should be, how we should think, how we should talk, and know that we're going to disagree and that we're going to thug it out sometimes, and we're going to read stuff or talk about stuff that makes us very uncomfortable, but we are here for the change. And so this is how I started Ark Republic. And I did it very intentionally as like the declaration. It's like the Declaration of Independence for the folk. Yeah.
Can I jump in 1 second, Doug, before you jump? Because earlier, Dr. Shivers and Therapeutic Thursday segment, I was talking about dreams. And when does someone know to pursue a dream? So I hear you recognizing in 2016 how pivotal that moment was and the gap and what people needed. But I'm curious about your own process of your own tapping into yourself and recognizing it's time to branch out and birthing Ark Republic. What was that process like? Who did you share that dream with? What was that just kind of, the infancy stages of this?
Well, me pushing out Ark Republic actually starts with a dream. It actually starts with an actual dream. 3 days after my grandmother's 2016, 3 days after my grandmother passes, I had a dream. And the dream, this is the first time I'm telling this. The dream was I was in a house. It was like a a craftsman house that are very signature in LA, but it was in a prairie or something. And there was a bird in there. The bird was beautiful. The bird was sitting on something. And the bird turned to me and said in my grandmother's voice, and my grandmother was a very, very soft-spoken woman. Very, very, I've never heard my grandmother fuss, cuss, or anything. She was that type of grandmother. But my grandmother and this bird looked at me and said, "You need to get your shit together." That's what, excuse me, that's what the bird said.
Yeah.
And I woke up laughing, and because I knew I needed to get it together. And so that began a trajectory. But let me stop there. I wanted a publication since the 90s. I started writing professionally at the LA Sentinel as a high schooler, and I fell in love with journalism. But I was in a household where journalism wasn't necessarily considered a job or a career. I was supposed to be a lawyer, right? And so I was talking about being a lawyer for many, many years. But when I left FAMU, I was so disenchanted with the system, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But a woman who had become my mentor through my writing said, why don't you just write? I had already been writing in newspapers, hip hop magazines. And so this is what started the writing. But I wanted to actually do a health magazine because I was vegan at the time, California, us. And it was called We Be Vegan. And I went to all these courses and, got a corporation. This is like in 98. Wow. 98, 99. And I got a corporation. And I remember going to my parents, because I was living with my parents at the time, because I was a journalist. I was making $23,000 a year in LA. You can't do much there. And I presented them this proposal about something I wanted, I wanted to do this magazine. My mom looked at me and said, "I'm only giving you money to get out my house so you can go to grad school or you can get a real job." Or so she said something like that. So I tabled that, and I just, I just did different forms of media. I did radio broadcasting for Pacifica Radio, which is the independent, I think it's what is it? KPFK? No, maybe that's in LA, but there's a Pacifica radio station in the Bay Area. So I did radio. I began to freelance write. I wrote press releases. I wrote for publicists. I wrote for small publications. Then when I actually, when I was 29, I was actually debating on if I should go to Howard Law or if I should go to Clark Atlanta and pursue my graduate degree. So I opted to go to Clark Atlanta, and there I actually served as the deputy press secretary for Cynthia McKinney, who was a congresswoman, and it by happenstance that was going on because she was actually my thesis, and I was just talking about how Black women in Congress were framed by media, and Cynthia McKinney at the time was the most controversial person because she was the first elected official to publicly question the Bush administration's foreknowledge of 9/11 or the intelligence that was given to the White House and also members of Congress about these potential terrorist attacks that could happen. She was deemed herself a terrorist and unpatriotic and was attacked. And so I wanted to capture that. What I saw was, because of her stance, a lot of people had abandoned her because people were scared, to be attached to her. And so she saw that I was not your ordinary, 22-year-old grad school student. By that time, I was 30. And and so I worked for her. But there, I saw a lot of things. And I actually, she lost her campaign. I actually quit because I had to make the decision of, did I want to finish my studies or get caught into the activist side again? And I know where that road goes because my father was, in it, and it resulted in him being blacklisted. So I'm giving you all these but it gave me a media experience about crises that I didn't have. And so for years, I would think back at that moment of how I could have served Congresswoman McKinney better, how I could have done this better. What were some of the things that I learned? Because the staff, several of the staff I still talk to this day, it was a very intense time. It was very scary. She had stalkers, bomb threats, all these things going on. So when I go through grad school, now I'm teaching media classes at Rutgers. So I went to Rutgers for my doctoral degree. And so I'm at Rutgers and I'm teaching all these kids journalism and media and all these things. But when I finally graduate and get my PhD at the tender age of 40, And I want to return to journalism, like full time. I aged out, according to the I had aged out at 40. I spent 11 years total in grad school trying to finish. So the students that I was teaching were getting the jobs, but I wasn't getting the jobs. And so I continued to be a professor. And then while I'm a professor, the Obama thing happens. I'm sorry, the Hillary Clinton Trump presidential campaign happens. And also, while I'm at New York, now I'm at New York University, I had made a decision that I wanted to carve out my own identity of who I wanted to be. When you are in an academic setting, you have to decide what is your trajectory. And so I wanted to be this practitioner scholar. And and also Arc Republic maintains my sanity. The academy is still very racist. Media is still very racist. Politics is still very racist. So I had to, also, have something where, I can make sense of what's going on and not experience all of the sexism, the racism, everything else that I experienced in all three of those segments and trajectories that I had been. So this is another reason why Arc Republic was birthed. My grandmother's dream was the confirmation that it was time for me to do what my purpose. And by the way, I share the same birthday as Ida B. Wells. So
yeah, you can't. Yeah, that's an extra. Doug, I'm gonna hog for a second.
Please.
I'm in a position as a fellow practitioner scholar who recently left academia last year and now back in the field. Thank you. I'm caught between a hallelujah moment, feeling seen and heard and excited for you and your journey, hearing the feedback of you being aged out, and I just am bearing witness to how someone's gift will make room for them.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I listened to your. I'm taking that in. I don't have anything to say, but yes.
Doug, I'll pass the bomb. Look, I'm an only child, but I share well. So, Doug, there you
go. Let me be clear here, audience, not here in Oakland, California, not here in the county of Alameda, California, not here in the state of California, but all across the nation and in several countries. Doni is sitting up here sharpening his tools, going, boy, that boy knocked the ball out the park with this show today. This is amazing. In addition to Dr. Shivers, in addition to your January article, my family history of Black farming and sharecropping and picking cotton was brought back to the top of my mind. My parents being from Arkansas, both my mom and dad came from Arkansas. Some of that acreage is still in the family that my grandparents' home rests on today in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. Question: can you tell us about your partnership with Black Farmers Index as they are listed on your website? and you are amazing, sister. Keep up the great work. Come on, bring it back.
You know what? I am truly a continuum and extension of my mother and father and my ancestors. I mean, this is something imbued in me. I can't take any credit. And it was a lot of carving, a lot of iron, fire, but I'm going to go into that. And I want to say that something struck me, Dr. Ashley, that I want to say. As Black professionals, our history, up until very recently, our obligation was always tethered to the community wellness. It's just been very recently that there's this idea that you can just live in some type of silo or individually. And they have all these names that people are using about it. But you're the psychologist. I was a psych major, by the way. I went to FAMU for Black psychology. So all those, Kobe Cambone, so us being we always are practitioners. For me,
Right.
like we always will practice our respective skill or art in the community. And personally, I think that that's something like a commitment or an obligation that every professional has, but Black professional in particular, because places like, shout out to my family. I got family in Oakland. What's up, Oakland? But because half of my family moved to the Bay Area and the other half moved to what up to Southern California. But you know, I say this, I have this working kind of understanding. When desegregation happened and the subsequent waves of, you know, this modernity or post-modernity, whatever you want to call it, Black people moving out of their respective communities is very similar to the brain drains that they talk about that happened in India and Africa, where all these professionals or the educated people left and they never returned back. This is what we face in my home of South Central. They call it South Los Angeles, you know, to a degree in Oakland, you know, and other urban areas in the United States, where a lot of Black people left and they never returned. They often might return for like a concert, because you can only catch good cultural activities in the Black sections, right? But in terms of committing to going back and doing the work and reinvesting in the community, that was one of the things that we faltered at. So I just wanted to say that. But let me get back to the farmers. Me doing farmers work is part of connected to what I'm saying. And I do what you were saying, like the family land. How I got connected with farmers. I'm not a farm. I can't grow. I can't grow much. I'm not gonna lie. I joke about this, but I have killed aloe vera plants because I have. It's that bad. It's just that bad. So I was actually I took a position at NYU to teach on their campus in Florence, Italy. And I opted, so you know, Italy was the second country to shutter in COVID, in the pandemic, after China. So in February, I was given, the campus had closed down, and in February, I was actually encouraged to return back to the States. But I said, no, I want to stay in. I had just kind of, you know, gotten a feel for the area, for Florence. And I wanted to stay. I said, I'm gonna thug it out here. What is this gonna be? A month or something, maybe? You know what happened? Oh, it wasn't thugging. That's a whole other story about what it's like being Black in Italy. Because you know what right now there's a very fascist, very right and white wing Italy that is anti-immigrant and anti-Black in a lot of ways, but in a particular way. But I decided to stay, and what happened is that Italy was you were banned from flying to the United States, so Italy was shut down. And so people were like, "Oh my God, Florence is so big. Ciao bella, ciao bella, ciao bella." So people were like, you know, on Facebook texting me, people I hadn't heard from for a long time. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you, right? But little did they know I was living really good, right? Drinking wine, eating cheese, which I shouldn't eat, and a whole bunch of bread. But I was getting bored like everybody. What I didn't know is that the population of Florence is only roughly about 200-something thousand, but about 18 million people pass through, tourists. So it was a ghost town when I was there. The only people that were around were myself and the immigrants that didn't have a place to travel, because a lot of the Italians went to the countryside. So I started reporting about what it was like. I started taking photos of the quarantine spaces, everything I possibly could to document my experiences. And then I heard that there were riots in the southern part of Italy going on. And the riots were, and if you don't know, like the breakdown of Italy, the richest part of Italy, or the most, affluent, is northern Italy. So Milan, not Rome. Rome is actually central, but Milan, Venice are considered like the hubs of uber wealth. Then Rome, because that's the old money. And so southern Italy is considered the poor place where the people are ignorant and they don't speak good Italian. Sounds very similar to America, but everybody loves the food from Sicily, the food from the South, right? But they were rioting there. They weren't really rioting, actually. They were looting the grocery stores because nobody had money to buy food. the irony is that a lot of the agriculture in the country is in the southern part of Italy. So the people who were picking the produce couldn't afford the produce and were going hungry. Wow. And when I started reading these stories, the first thing that came to mind, this is going to happen in the United States. And when it does happen in the United States, the people who are farthest from their food sources are going to suffer. We know who that is. That's the Black community. And this is the terrorism that I'm talking about, because we've been kicked off of our land, right? And so I'm in Italy and I began to have survivor's remorse, because now it's kicking in the States and people don't look too particularly as happy as I was. And so I wanted to do something about it, because I knew that a food shortage was coming. It wasn't if, it was coming. And so me being a media person, I launched what I call just a simple media project on our Republic. And that was just to provide what I thought was an accessible listing, like a green book, of Black farmers in the United States, where people could access them. My hope was several things. One, my hope was that people began to speak to farmers, because as we saw during the pandemic, farmers were forced by the USDA to leave their foods rotting in the field, to dump their milks, to slaughter their chickens, right? But you know who kept their stuff? Black farmers. Why? Because they were so outside of the USDA system, they hadn't been beholden to all those contracts and stipulations that these white farmers had, getting subsidies from USDA. The reason why they did it was they got subsidies from the USDA. And so if they didn't do it, some people were even threatened with jail time or exorbitant fines. So I said, okay, well, maybe we need to talk to farmers that, even though they've been on the outside of agribusiness, they're still here. Maybe they have some answers about what it is we need to do about this broken food system that is very apparent. One, and then two, a couple of months later, George Floyd happens, and all these people want to be on the right side or the Black side of history. I said, okay, we'll give business to some. I don't know what it is about food and absolving white guilt, but folk were more comfortable than these farmers. So I said, well, put farmers in your Rolodex. So this is how Black Farmers Index came about. When people began to take the list, farmers began to contact me, or really the wives of farmers and women were like, my husband's a farmer, could you put him on a list? I'm a farmer, could you put me on the list? Because some guys contacted me too as well. And so a list that was 150 in its initial stage, then began to balloon. I think it got to like 500. And I was like, oh, yes, right? Yes. Let me tell you what happened. I'm giving y'all all this juicy tea.
Yes. We're on the edge of our seats. That's why. Okay.
Well, I got an email from another website that does exclusive or singularly Black stories about, go here, 10 best Black things, whatever. And so I was asked if they could use the information, like copy it and paste it on their site, right? And I said, we're not going to do this today. So I went into hyper mode, set up a website, talked to my mother and two of my four sisters, and asked them if they could form a nonprofit with me called the Black Farmers Index and solidify it. Because one thing I'm hyper vigilant about is making sure Black women do not become invisible in the work that we do. So I set up the site, and I set up the site I'm not lying, in a day. And like in 3 or 4 days time, we were incorporated and everything. Then I answered the person, but before I answered that person, I went on their site and they had copied and pasted it anyway. And so we went into a back and forth. And after that, I just said, you know what, I'm going to keep on moving. Well, today we have over 1,200 farmers listed, and we probably have another 300 to 400 that are not on the site. And we are thriving. So this is how I get into it with farmers. And so I'm talking to the pandemic. That's all I'm talking to farmers. I'm having a great time, right? I am laughing. I'm learning about histories. I know a farmer who whose grandfather kept the farm by selling moonshine. I have all these really great stories, and I'm collecting all these stories. I'm writing all these stories, and so I began to fall in love with just the farmers, and I just knew like this is what I was supposed to do. So even though my family lost a substantial amount, most of their farming land, and it's only relegated to a couple of plots in Louisiana. This circles back to Mr. Doug was talking about, like me. I feel like this is my ancestral work that I'm doing, for the land and for the people. And so this is how I get with Black farmers. So when the Mallorys come to my doorstep, I've heard this story before, because these farmers are telling me, I'm hearing stories, oh, somebody, stole this or burnt that or ran over my crops. And when this really, it always has happened. But what people don't realize is that it actually upticked when the Farmers of Color bill was passed during the Biden administration. White farmers were pissed off. And so Black farmers began to experience these, these attacks even more. So here I am though. And so today I work with farmers, and I'm, now I'm seeing more of the challenges with it, but it's a bit by bit every day. Cause now I'm working on 2 companies, and I got a full-time job, and my commute is 2.5 to 3 hours each way, 3 days a week. So yeah.
Well, we are working with about 15 minutes left. And I wanted to say this. First off, Dr. Ashley has something she wants to share with us. I'm hoping. And I think our producer had a conversation with you earlier about something that has something directly to do with this.
Okay.
So, Dr. Ashley, because you will be taking a sabbatical, do you want to share with our audience, or is it, wait a minute, shh, top secret, shh, don't say what?
Yes, I can. But first of all, thank you, Dr. Shivers. Fed is an understatement. So I am basking in your bearing witness and, again, your advocacy. Quick aside before I share my news: intellectual property. So you safeguarding intellectual property, collaborating with your mother, your sisters is so important. But we could just even have a discussion about, again, the blood, sweat, and tears of the work and how that's often co-opted, but I digress. So often on Therapeutic Thursdays, audience, I talk about selecting a therapist. And so in the state of California, again, there's a certain process in becoming a licensed clinician. So for instance, there are 3 different types of mental health therapists. There's a social worker as well. There's a licensed clinical psychologist. There's a licensed marriage and family therapist. And there's also another license of professional counselors. That means an individual has, at minimum, collected 3,000 clinical hours and sits for 2 different types of examinations. In my history, I'm a proud, again, Howard Bison for undergrad, and my graduate degrees are for Pepperdine University. After that, in completion, I recently completed over 3,000 hours. And so now I am in the birthing stages, the final trimester of sitting for licensing examinations to have the title of licensed clinical psychologist. And so when we talk about timelines, and that's why I smiled earlier on talking about dreams and Therapeutic Thursdays, but Dr. Shivers, when you talked about your journey to graduate school and at this age, this milestone, and at this age, and I am a believer in God, and so He has the final say of the appointed time. And my season is upon us. And so I have unfinished business, but I have a lot of wisdom and experience. And so now my process again, a girl from Oakland living in LA, Kobe on my back. I get into a Coleman tunnel vision. My father, former athlete, we get into, there's a way I tap in. And then the only child part doesn't help, doesn't hurt either. Cause I'm like, I tell everybody, I love you. Wyclef Jean used to say, I'm gone to November. I'll be gone till about May or June. So I'm taking a sabbatical.
That's
so
right.
I can deep dive into what I need so that I can come out ready to serve my community better. So that is my news.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
We're
you.
going to miss you, but your spot will always be here. On that note, we had some questions left for this amazing Dr. Shivers, but my other half, the mastermind behind why I look so good, besides around all these doctors, he has offered Dr. Kaia Niambi Shivers. I'll let her explain what we offered and see if it coincides with what she can do in the absence of Dr. Ashley. Because let's be clear here, audience, especially our Nubian queen, young sisters out there. When you can see her, you can be her. On that note, Dr. Shivers, please let our audience know what we asked you and what you.
Well, I was asked if I could I could never be a substitute and never fill in, but I got your back. So I will be on when I can, starting next Thursday. I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna rock and roll as much as I can, right?
Yes.
When I can get in and fit in, I got you. And that's what we do. That's what we do for each other. And I thank you all because you had my back at, to me, one of the most challenging times in my writing journalism career that I'm still going through right now. But thank you so much.
Well, that's the power of Blackness. When we put our minds together, we are invincible. So we thank you, and we look forward to it on next week. We're gonna give you the questions next week. You're gonna read them off and answer them yourself.
No, you know what? I love our vibe. We're gonna vibe, okay? We're gonna vibe. And I'm so sorry we didn't get to the story about the Mallorys, but everything happens, as you say, Dr. Ashley, in divine time.
Yes.
Well, wait a minute. What's that terminology you said? We're gonna thug it. Hey,
thug it out.
Wait a minute. I already said, I got we're going on the enemy line now. We're gonna be knocking some folks.
We're gonna thug it out. Well, I think,
Ashley keeps,
you know what? I'm gonna follow Ashley. Hopefully, I can get my Nipsey Hussle poster behind me.
That's what I'm telling you. Yes, you better bring. I can't wait to see your spin on it. I'm excited. Doug, man, I tell you, see, now let me just 30 seconds, because I don't make it to Oakland as often as I should during the pandemic. But Doug, when we have the chefs, Doug gets the food, he gets the gumbo, he gets to go to the parties, and now you're gonna be with Dr. Shivers, boy. I'm working on. Let me stop. But I'm so excited, and I know the synergy is gonna be amazing. And just again, audience, tune in, stay on top of what's going on. I'm excited to see where things go.
Yeah.
Well, where you are outside of New York on the East Coast?
Actually, I live in Philadelphia now. I live in Philly. So that's my commute is Philly to New York City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, audience, as you can see, we went from LA to Philly now. So we are steady going to be rocking here on the Black Business Roundtable. Dr. Ashley, we love you.
Thank you.
Call Dr. Shivers every so often and say, keep my boy there, because you know me, I'll be ready to throw them things.
Oh my God.
I'm ready to give you an uppercut.
We gotta get you need a whole commercial on that one. Thugging it out with Doug Blackshear. Thugging it out with Doug Blackshear.
Dr. Ashley, we want to thank you, Dr. Shivers, for coming on, and we look forward for you. And the times you can't make it, because we have very, very good allies and friends. So we know you got a busy schedule on the East Coast, being a professor at New York University. Is it New York University or University of New York?
You know, NYU, New York University.
New York University. So we're gonna make sure that it's convenient for you and work around your schedule. Audience, as you can see, the Black Business Roundtable under Doni Glover, BlackUSA.news. We do nothing but get stronger, and not just as a show, but as a people and as a nation. This show is designed to do one thing: increase Black economics, increase Black political power, and unite our people coast to coast. Because when we're not united, they breaking us off like fingers one at a time. But we come in like a fist, and you got the Doug Blackshear, the Fred Stanford uppercut, and we'll knock that racism right out. Dr. Ashley, can you close us out? It's going to be a pleasure working with you, Doctor.
Oh my gosh, like Shivers, as you see, you gonna laugh. Y'all gonna cut up and laugh.
We're going to have some fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, tune in. We have some friends of the show that have their Instagram pages, and we just want to stay abreast. I'm just going to highlight a few. We have at Labjay Wines, at AASEG Oakland, at Sabir Lockett, at Pry First, Brother Pry First. We saw you in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. At Rex Pickett. Again, Mr. Doni Glover, we thank you for your continued support and mentorship in this space. Audience, remember, we have sister programming on this platform that will keep you informed. There's Chapin Friends on Mondays, Titillating Tuesdays with Stacey Dennis, and Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesdays. There's Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Fridays. And again, he knows all about blockchain and cryptocurrency. On Saturdays, there's the Blackout Live from New York with Tajmir. And Sundays, there's 60 Minutes in Black USA with Michael Haney. If you want to be in the know and reach our audience, then join our BBRT advertising family, or to be considered to be a possible guest on the show. Email us at bbrt2021@hotmail.com. In the email, include your company's name, contact information, and website for vetting consideration. Again, some additional shows. Mr. Doni Glover is a man of the people, and he is constantly moving. He hosts BlackUSA.news morning show. There's the Doni Glover show. There's also People Over Politics, Political Cipher, and one that I have to tune into. I have to put this on my list when I'm studying for a break. Date 'em all, sis. So again, audience, tune. That would start. Date 'em all, sis. Go ahead and tune into these shows, and then always, we're very close to getting an update. Again, the next trial date for Driving While Black, Michael Thrash, Taylor County TX, is March 27th. So if you aren't familiar with the story that we've been following since 2021, go ahead and watch our former episode on October 14th, 2021. Again, the hashtag is Driving While Black, Michael Thrash, Taylor County TX. And as always, we're supporting Carlton, hashtag Stand with Carlton of Raleigh, NC 2022. Doug?
Well, audience, if you know of Black people who are scared, tell them to watch the show. We'll help them to overcome that mental scare. Because if we are going to change the landscape of our country and be more and have more inclusiveness, we must communicate all the issues that are plaguing the people who do not have the voice in white media. Dr. Shivers, is going to be a wonderful, wonderful time working with you. Between you and me, we might have to get a helicopter, meet halfway, and just go get them, because you got to. We're going to plug it out. We'll be calling Dr. Ashley after. Thank you, Dr. Ashley. I will stay in touch.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And we
again.
love you.
Thank
We
you.
thank for what you
Thank
brought
you
to the
so
show. We
much.
look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We return Thursday. Barack Obama Shaw and a first-time surprise guest. So stay tuned as someone is running for office. We look forward to seeing you every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Black USA News Network on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. And remember, we can listen, we can learn, and we can share, because I know you care. This is Doug Blackshear, Dr. Ashley Coleman, and now on the Black Business Roundtable. God bless. Thank you. We'll see you next week. And remember, don't be scared. Get in the battle, because the more hands on deck. There you go. Oh, that's all I need. We'll see you next week. God bless. Thank you.